All right. See anybody comes in here. I think what I'm going to do is go and get a drink of water. I have this mic on, so what I can do is walk and go get water. And okay. What I'll do. I'm really thirsty, so I'm going to get some water. I know you guys can see me and you can hear me and things like that. So what I'm going to do, I have this as portable. I'm going to continue to talk a little bit until people kind of come into this room. Be right back. You know, well, I'm going to go get some water, talk to my wife too. And just hold on. So you guys, just let you know. Oh no, now the headset's starting to go. Battery. I'll have to use a different setup here. Yep, that's what's happening. It has about a 2 hour straight. There we go. All right. Change the setting. Okay, I'll be back in a second. Okay. All right. There we go. Okay, how you guys doing? I got to quick get away from this thing. The battery's dying on it, so I'm going to go to the webcam. And there we go. All right, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
All right, let me turn the bass down. Yeah, I got to use the webcam, so my voice might not be as pristine. The battery's going out. Good timing too. Battery's going out. Okay. Whew. So, 15 viewers. Only you guys in here. What'd you guys think? You guys even there? You can say something? Carl, Vincent.
Give me a sec.
All right. Yeah, I did sound like a Roman Catholic. Hey, Calvinist Klein, how you doing?
Hey, man, how's it going?
It's going, man.
Yeah.
Just let everybody know. Everybody's, people who like Jesse, just click the link. You can get in. You can talk. I'm not going to kick you. It's not a big deal.
So I thought it was pretty strange. It was much different. Everyone turned out. The comment section was going crazy.
Yeah.
Calvinist Klein's to blame.
I think, well, because I was even disagreeing with some of the Calvinists in there, some of the Protestants, because I just made the comment that some people will say that we pay our sin debt in hell, and I'm like, I don't like that. That language is a little strange to me.
Yeah.
Because it's in a different sense. It's like it's the penalty, the just punishment for sin. It's not as if we're paying it off or something like that. It's just It sounds a little weird, but
right.
I think what Jesse was doing was he was conflating, as you said, Matt. He was conflating the cancellation of sin with the forgiveness of sin.
Right. He had to.
Yeah, and that made the whole thing a straw. This entire position was a straw man tonight.
Yeah, what I think happened is he saw an opportunity in his mind to find an inconsistency. He hammered it. I kept answering him and trying to show it. I tried different ways, and he just refused to concede. Well, he can't concede because of his position. I mean, that's what it says. Either way, in Colossians 2:14, when it talks about if it's a sin debt that's canceled, that's a problem for him. If it's the law, and then it's the dietary law that was canceled.
I've actually heard that before.
So, and that's
Huh?
No,
That it's a
I
dietary.
don't.
Wow.
Get later into. Um, they're going later into the context, and they're ignoring verse 13 to come up to that conclusion.
Yeah.
right.
13's the killer part, and that's what I tried to. I was waiting to see how far he's going to hang himself, and then when I showed him, it's having forgiven us all our transgressions, having canceled the certificate of debt. Those are connected by the participles. The ongoing action in the present tense. That's what's going on. And if that's the dietary laws, then how is that a sinful issue? Because it has to do an issue of the moral law, which is the New Testament now. So his interpretation, it can't work according to the text. I tried to show it to him, but
Right.
I was a little disappointed when it came to the discussion of First Peter, I believe. And that wasn't really touched upon much at all.
Peter, what?
Was it 224?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, that's a problem for him, And every time I asked him the question, he avoided it.
That's what I was actually thinking. That's what he really needs to deal with. But I also was. So, was the opening statements for 5 minutes?
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, he just gave his position. I just kind of responded. It wasn't that big a deal. But, I went to 1 Peter 2:24 several times and showed him, this is what it says. He bore our sin. What does that mean? And he, what he would do, in my opinion, is take off in a different direction and then just talk fast for a long time. Come on, get back to the issue and deal with the issue. What does the text say? He bore our sin in his body. What does that mean? And he says like he did with so many verses, he would just change the wording a little bit constantly. It was pretty bad. And then at the end, this guy's preaching a false gospel.
Yeah, that was really confusing because he would say, "Oh no, it's the fruit," but if you sin, you lose your salvation. So I was like, "Is keeping the law doing it, or is that a fruit?" Or he just kept going back and forth. I thought on that.
That's where I went to the issue of coveting. I think on my feed here, I wish I could articulate it better, but coveting is an issue of attitude. Because he said repentance is an attitude change. Coveting is an attitude. It's all about that. So you're keeping the law by not coveting. He is keeping his salvation by his works, by his ability to keep the law.
Yeah, I wanted to see him show where justification isn't a one-time action. Judging from Romans 5:1, that's what I wanted to see.
Right, and in Romans 4:6-8, we were going crazy in the comment section about this, but when Paul says, "Blessed is the man to whom the Lord will not impute sin," there's ume there, denial of the possibility and potentiality. There's no potential, and I believe the faith in Romans 4:5 is, or the believe in Romans 4:5 is present tense as well. So it's like the ongoing faith that justifies, that we're justified through.
Right.
So.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's so many ways to deal with this. I mean, geez, but boy, I'll tell you, he's good at just at conflating, begging the question, confusing the issues.
Yeah, he didn't there's so many things he didn't like. Isaiah 53. I wanted to see what he had to say about that. It's kind of a letdown. But I wasn't expecting much.
No. But at least at the end, anybody's going to watch that long. At least at the end, he's saying, yeah, you get. I mean, come on, think about it. You get a little buzz, just a little buzz. You've lost your salvation. What?
Oh man, yeah, that was wild. I was like, I don't know. I don't want to know how many times I've lost my salvation.
I mean, a little buzz means you're a drunkard now. What? And he misappropriated that verse. And that's talking about those abiding in it, the unregenerate. But if you do this, and then the issue of Romans 7, that's not Paul. It's even though Paul's saying me. It's not Paul. Wow.
Yeah, especially in the last verse of that. Well, was he saying it's not Paul or it's did he say it's not a Christian either? Or is,
Yeah,
like,
it's a person in the unregenerate state.
oh, okay.
Clearly Paul, but it's debated when.
The last verse is like a destroyer of that, because there's praise given to God through Christ, and then he restates the purpose of that whole pericope, which is, there's some people with the mind, they worship God, I forget the terminology he uses there. He says he serves God, but with the flesh he serves sin. But then in the next chapter he says, well, there's some people that their mind set on the things of the flesh, and their flesh and their mind are working towards the same goal, which is according to the flesh, but that's not the Christian. But
well, it's just odd. Usually when people argue about that, they're arguing about when. Is this before? Is this unconverted at all? Or you can go Martin Lloyd Jones and come out with a really weird interpretation. That's not even what it's about.
Right. I have to. I know Dan Wallace has a really good treatment of that passage in his grammar. He has a really good treatment of that. And I don't remember off the top of my head what he says, but he's like, in order to be consistent, then he says you must hold this, and this, and it makes perfect sense when you look at it. And I forgot what the conclusion was, but yeah, I got to post that or something. His handling of that passage is really good, because that is a confusing passage, Romans 7. So. But yeah, Jesse was a little disappointing there.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Yeah.
I still don't fully comprehend government atonement theory.
I don't either, actually. Yeah, I know that's historically like an Arminian atonement, the theory of the atonement, but I don't really understand it. I know the government, it's like something government theory. I don't know if it's exactly his.
Aris came to defend it, so now we'll understand.
I know whatever Bonson says. I just have to do whatever the opposite of that. So
right.
All right, good. Government atonement theory. It's your turn.
Okay, trying to get the link right. So someone was sitting there having trouble with it, and someone put another link, so I just modified it on the site. Okay.
I think another thing that popped up was the issue of if the atonement happened way back, well, how are you being forgiven? The dueness of time when things are applied, when you believe, and so forth. And I find that a pretty bad argument that's common. That's why I emphasize the word by in by faith. I find that a pretty bad argument that's common. That's why I emphasize the word by in by faith. So there's two of me. There we go.
Oh.
Thank you, whoever. I was just like, that's how horrible I sound. I was just like, God help me. That's pretty much as bad as I just lost my salvation there. What was my
I still can't get over that. You lose your salvation if you get a little buzzed while you're drinking. Even if it's accidental, you lose your salvation.
Yeah, that's just so crazy. I mean, and he's like, I would just stay away from wine altogether. The people in the Bible never did that. They drank wine all the time.
No. Well, I went to Proverbs 31:6. It says, give strong drink to the man who's perishing. If I
half
drink
a beer,
that,
half a beer cutoff limit. Half a beer cutoff limit.
wow.
He was like, you're getting off topic.
Hang himself. Okay, so you're keeping by this, by that. I'm just trying to work with him. But, I'd ask him a question. He would just bolt off with, 8 directions. Jesse, calm down. But, man, the poor guy is keeping his salvation by his works.
I know it, and you know what's funny is that functionally speaking, I live the kind of life he would in terms of like when it comes to drinking and smoking and doing drugs, things like that. I don't touch him, not because I don't think that I could, but I'm just doing it as a practical means because I just want to be healthy. That's one thing I do to be healthy is not do drinking or smoking or something like that. I mean, I eat plenty of bad food, but in terms of drinking, I've never had a single beer in my life. So I'm technically living the life that he is, but for him to turn around and say, well, if you think that you can get a drink, then you're teaching a license for immorality. I'm like, no. If I wanted to be immoral, I'd go ahead and start getting drunk. Why wouldn't I? because I'm saved. Because I mean, that's what he keeps saying. Well, he corrected himself a couple times and said, okay, Matt, you're not saying that it's okay to sin and still be saved, but you're still teaching a license to immorality because you teach that you can be saved and still be in sin. You can still sin and still be saved. And it's like, but that's not a license then, because you're saying it's not okay. Then that means you shouldn't be doing it. It's not that it's not possible. So, and you know, this reminds me of the debate with Dan Corner that Gene Cook had back in 2006. And Dan Corner and this guy argued very much the same way, except this guy's a little bit slightly more restrained because he doesn't just go about accusing his opponents of immorality. Not necessarily anyway. But yeah, it just drove me crazy. I just tuned into the stream just a little bit ago, like in the last half an hour of the debate, and I couldn't stop listening. Me and my brother here, we're trying to go to sleep, and then we're wide awake. We heard that part of the debate. You guys were going at it. We're like, oh, we can't turn it off now. We want to see where this goes. Oh, it was a great debate. It was an awesome debate. I can't wait to listen to the rest of it.
Well, you know, we shall. But this idea, you know, so many things I want to bring up. I said, you know, well, wait a minute. If you get a little buzz, then you've lost your salvation. Okay. You know, once I had my gallbladder out and I was in the emergency room and they morphined me up and I had a buzz. Did I lose my salvation? I actually liked the buzz while I was on morphine. I lose my salvation because I liked it.
Well, I mean, you should never go in for surgery altogether. I mean, if you're a repentant person, then you just won't even walk the line as he talked about. But yeah, I grew up in a group of people very similar to these in terms of sin and stuff like that, talking about making sure you don't even come a little bit close to maybe taking a risk that you might commit one particular sin. But these people, they're not holy. They're not any more pious or holy than anybody else. They're just as immoral and sinful. So when he says, well, I don't think the Christian life is a Christian life where you sin every single day, that means that he thinks he goes for a day, perhaps even multiple days, and doesn't sin once. He really actually thinks that. It's like, oh my gosh, you're so deluded. You actually think you go for 24-hour periods and you don't even sin one time. Not even once. It's ridiculous.
In fact, I confessed. Yeah, I got my problem. I struggled. Oh, you're not a real Christian then. No, I don't. You know, and he said, oh, then you can. What was it? How he said it? Well, then you can lose your salvation. I said, no, I can't. I'm trusting in Christ. I don't have to do what you do. You know, keep my law. It's so obvious he's keeping the law to be saved.
And he ran like a scared little rabbit from Romans chapter 7. Man, I have heard so many people not even being sinless perfectionists, talking about the condition of the security of the believer, whether it's conditional or unconditional. And whenever it comes to Romans 7, they tend to say what this guy did. And that is that, well, Romans 7 is Paul talking about himself before he was a believer. But everything he says in Romans 7 is about the present tense. It's all present tense. And what was his response? It was, well, you know, in certain Greek translations, that sometimes something that is said in the present English, so I actually think he got it backwards, is a past thing. And I'm like, okay, so wait a minute. So Romans 7 is a mistranslation then? What does that mean then?
It's the historical present. It's a historical.
Right. Well, no, I agree. Paul's talking about himself in the present tense. I totally agree with that. But then it's like he throws out that there may be a possible mistranslation. I don't know if he believes that. He just threw out there that sometimes things are translated differently. But either it's translated wrong or it's translated properly, and you need to back up a little bit and figure out the context is him talking about the past, but he can't be talking about the past because he keeps talking about himself in the present. You know, wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of death? That's him right there.
But you know, he brought it out. It's the unbeliever talking. Well, wait a minute. But the Bible says the unbelievers do not do any good. That's
but it
good.
doesn't say that they can't. It doesn't say that they can. It just says that they don't do it. It doesn't say that they can. It's like, well, they can't if all they can do is the bad thing.
Oh.
And that's essentially the same thing too.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not exactly the same thing, but it's just if they don't do it, then they don't do it. Like, you know, it's going to answer that the question of ability later, but it says that they don't do that.
I was telling them in the Greek, it's a condition. A lot of people don't know this. The present tense is not exactly like our present tense. So if you were to say present tense is number 1, and in English, a participle, you know, I ate is present tense number 1. I am eating is number 10. You know, this varying degree of intensity of the formation of action and the continuation of action. The Greek present is like a 2 or a 3. There's an issue there of continuation. And so, you know, this is, I forget what concept we're talking about. I am a little bit tired, but this is what we're talking about in that thing about, I forget what I was talking about. Anyway, it's part of, I totally forgot. My brain's fried after all this time.
You've been debating for 3 hours.
Continuous tense or present tense. Yeah.
About what? Verse. It was Romans 7.
Romans 3.
No, it was Romans 7.
Oh, was it Romans 7? Oh, I thought you were referring to Romans 3.
Yeah, well, you know, but it's the idea of continuation in something. You know, we struggle, but with him, you're not allowed to struggle. You have to have victory. Victory is where it's at. And
I know it, but see, that's where it becomes more of a serious issue, because Romans 7 is not teaching a license to immorality. It's meant as a chapter of comfort to believers who are undergoing persecution, who might be afraid that, what if I do commit a sin and then I die? It's meant as a comfort that, listen, you're in pursuit of holiness. We know you don't want to sin, but don't worry, because if you fail, that was never the way you kept your salvation. It's a matter of comfort for people that believe in Jesse's theology, in his soteriology. There's no comfort. No, and I can tell you, but when I used to believe very close to what he did, not quite, but very close, having nightmares that the end of the world was about to come in just a couple of seconds, and that I didn't have the chance to do what he did and pray a prayer to ask God to forgive me for that one sin I committed a few seconds ago, that's where his theology stops being something that we can sort of laugh at in our position right now, to the point where people who actually believe in it, their lives are just, they're sucked free of any kind of joy. This constant need, this worry that will haunt your dreams even.
Yeah, but you see, for him though, what has to happen to the heart where you say, I don't sin anymore?
Well, that sounds easy. Just don't sin. Don't do it.
Yeah, just don't do it anymore. Wow.
He has a very low.
Why did I think of that? Just don't.
He doesn't. Yeah, I mean, I think he said something similar to that. Like, well, if I were you, I would just stop sinning that way. He said something very similar to that, and I was like, man, if it was so simple, just don't sin. Well, who's gonna have a problem with that? Just don't sin. I mean, it's as simple as that. Just don't sin. It's just like, don't jump off a cliff. You know, you just don't do it. I thought Romans 7 was saying that Paul had 2 different laws in his body. One is it's waging against the law of his mind and making him captive to the law of sin. But I guess I can just not be captive. Just don't be captive.
Yeah, it's like Nike. Just don't do it. The reverse.
Reverse Nike. Isn't he the same guy who said he never sins? Anyway.
Yes, him, and along with the rest of his followers, they all believe that they are sinless perfectionists. I think that's the right term, right?
Yep.
Right. You know, when I was in Montana, we had our debate, and we had this no cross-examination period, which really needs to happen on this
Which
issue.
Wasn't a debate then.
Yeah. But I actually got to the place where I could still very clearly remember the group of people in the audience and how hostile they were to me. And side note, that's the worst I've ever been treated by any group, including atheists in the crowd. That group treated me the very worst in their disrespect, their condescension, their mocking tones. And these are the guys who said they don't sin anymore. And at some point, I forgot where, I actually started preaching the gospel to them. I don't know if you guys saw that, but I did. I remember going, I got to preach the gospel to them. They need to know that we don't keep our salvation by our goodness. This is the same thing with Jesse, which I had to say to him several times. You are preaching a false gospel, because he is a gospel of salvation by keeping the law. And I have my notes, still. And what he was saying, that he was absolutely saying, this part of, where was this? I got it someplace. Yeah, I got it over here. But anyway, where he said, oh yeah. So you lose your salvation every time you sin. Well, then logically, you keep it by not sinning.
Yeah.
And sin is breaking the law of God.
Yeah, that was good when you did that.
What's that?
That was good when you brought that up. The logical conclusion is you keep it. You keep your salvation by not sinning. That he lost the debate at that point. He was done.
It was over. It was over a long time ago. But yeah, so you keep your salvation by your keeping the moral law. And
very, very similar to Rome in a lot of ways. It's Pelagianism.
Oh yeah, there's so many things I wanted to say, but I didn't. But one of the things about the debate I thought was, unfortunate was he was just trying to dominate, in my opinion, throwing things out and constantly talking and saying so much. And I wanted to stay on the issue of Colossians 2:14, 1 Peter 2:24, but he was the one who went around and started bringing up other stuff.
Well, I think he was doing that because he was on the run. You can say he was trying to dominate at the same time, but as soon as you quote Romans 7, he quoted one verse out of Romans 6 as in response, just like at the snap of a finger. It's very fast, very, very on top of it, but he didn't interact with Romans 7 in any substantive manner. I would like to see you guys do a debate just on the chapter of Romans chapter 7. See how long he survives that.
Well, what he's good at is just giving answers, giving things. And it's difficult on the fly to listen to something said a certain way, where a sentence this way or that way can mean something different or not. And then you have to adapt to it. And it's tough. It's just nature of any conversation you have. But this idea that I've heard this before, Paul, it wasn't really about Paul, about the unregenerate, which I've examined before. It doesn't make any sense. The unregenerate don't worry about this stuff because the Bible says they don't do any good. And I quoted that. That's what it was, the present tense in Romans 3, 10, 11, 12. None seeks for God. None does any good. That's a continuing action. And that's what he's talking about there. And, so therefore, Romans 7, well, yeah, they are doing good by recognizing his own sin. Well, then he said, well, then what they're doing is with the grace of God, he's enlightened them. Well, that's prevenient grace, which is why I asked him later, you believe in prevenient grace, right?
Well,
I really want to talk about free will with them, because there's some
he's a
things you got about that. But,
he's a Pelagian.
oh, yeah. He's a Pelagian.
How did
so there's no reason for prevenient grace.
Right. That's why I was confused while watching it, because he started throwing out prevenient grace. And I was like, okay, so he's left the Pelagian category, but then I was super confused about that.
No, Metal, he was in the YouTube chat.
Yeah, he didn't say prevenient grace. Notice I asked him, are you affirming? I'm assuming prevenient grace. I had to use the phrase, the couplet, prevenient grace. So what I want to do is have a debate with him on the nature of free will and salvation and God's grace.
Hey, Matt, your audio's breaking up. Your audio has that sound as you're speaking.
Because his headset died.
Well, let me put it back on. It's been charging for a little bit, so maybe it'll work now.
Yeah, you do sound a little bit robotic without it.
Hey, Matt.
How's that? Okay.
Oh, that's way better. Yes.
That's better. Yeah, this thing was dying, so I'll just put it on a little bit longer until I have to go.
Matt, one of the things that I was hoping you might have brought up with him is whenever he spoke about sin, he seemed to always focus on sins of commission, not sins of omission. And that's kind of where I think it's easier to show where we're falling short.
But he covered
really
that.
Loving our neighbor. My neighbor needs a pickup truck. I have a pickup truck. I should maybe give it to him and love him. I mean, are any of us really doing that? To the standard of perfection. Jesse's kind of pretty much deluded about his sin.
Yeah.
Oh, I literally raffled at the point where he said that the blood of Christ doesn't cover intentional sins. I just started laughing and I was clapping my hands. I was like, that's the vast majority of our sins. They're all voluntary. So as long as we sin by accident, the blood of Christ covers for them. Oh, by the way, if the blood of Christ covers for them, does that mean we don't have to ask for forgiveness for them? Because he was ridiculing that idea in the debate. He was saying, well, I mean, the idea that you have to ask for forgiveness for something that's already covered from our perspective. But from his perspective, if it's unintentional, then the blood of Christ covered it. So do we have to ask for forgiveness for unintentional sins? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. But even I'm looking at Leviticus 4, and it's talking about the issue of unintentional sins. And this is Leviticus in the Old Testament, Israelite nation, and talking about individuals, groups, leaders, lay people, and if they sin unintentionally, literally in the ESV, then they have to offer a blood offering. It's an offering for the sin, which means it doesn't matter if it was unintentional. It was still a sin.
Right.
But for
sin, accidental or on purpose. I say to people, there's only two kinds of sins we commit, those on purpose and those on accident. And both of them need to be covered. But what he was saying, what he said there, which is why I focused on it and said, is that what you're saying? Because if he did say that, it's way over for him. We're going to jump on that one real heavy. But he modified it.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot how he modified it, but he did in order to get out from underneath that.
Yep.
Oh, the
do Christians, real quick, do Christians unintentionally sin every single day? Because he also mocked that idea. Christians don't sin every single day. So, but does that include the unintentional sins? So,
what if you sin and you don't know about it? Which is why I brought up the issue of me praying back there on that couch, and I realized I said something that was sinful, and it was. But I didn't realize I had that in me. What, am I guilty? Because, he says he doesn't sin anymore. Was that actually a sin? Well, yes, it was. But was it a sin before I expressed it? Yes, it was. Pride is sinful.
Mm-hmm.
So I was trying to show him what he's saying about he has to confess it and all this stuff, intentional. It doesn't work. It's the issue of the heart. And the heart's wicked. And that's just an example of how it came out. But he's always got to have some way. Now it has to be intentional. And then he said what he said about the atonement. I'm like, what? What I'm hoping is that a lot of his followers pay attention to this and say, oh my goodness, what's he saying? What's he saying? Did he say that? Is he saying these things?
Yeah, he was sounding kind of nutty.
What about an intentional sin that you commit and then you forget about it after you've even been converted yet? What if you steal a cookie?
That's another.
Right.
But that's all covered.
Well, I mean, but what if you steal a cookie from the cookie jar and it was completely intentional, obviously, and then you forget about it for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
I guess you're unsaved, because if you commit a sin, you're unsaved. You're going to go to hell. The blood of Christ was enough to cover all of your unintentional sins, but that one intentional sin of taking a cookie from the cookie jar, that can send you to hell.
Well, judging
if you're
from
driving
his
the car, you intentionally say something really evil to somebody, and you get in a car accident, and then you're in a coma for a month. You wake up, you don't remember anything.
Yeah. You never remember it. You can never ask for it to be forgiven. So what do you do?
Do these questions even make sense within the government theory of the atonement?
The government theory of the atonement is difficult to understand to some degree. And I've got it on my website, an analysis of what it is. But let me give you some of the stuff, what it says, and we can ask the question again. What it teaches is God is a moral governor and is not an offended party. So he's not offended by our sin in a legal sense. which is not true, I asked him, is it a legal debt? At first he said no. Then he said sin was a legal debt. Then sin could be transferred. He bore our sin. How's that work? No, he didn't bear our sin. He's so inconsistent. But at any rate, number two, Jesus suffered on the cross on behalf of humanity. He did not bear individual sins. Now that is consistent with with open theism, which he holds to, because how could God impute sins, specific sins, to people if he doesn't know the future exhaustively? So it's consistent. Number three, Jesus did not pay the legal debt to God for the sins committed by anyone who has broken God's law. Now Colossians 2:14 says he did, and that's the case. But even when he says it's the written ordinances, which, seriously, the dietary laws, are you kidding me? But at any rate, even if that's the case, that the law is done away with, then you can't have sin if there is no law. Romans 5:13. He's stuck that way. The four, Jesus suffering on the cross was not propitiatory, and that's a whole other thing I wanted to talk about, the nature of propitiation. But at any rate, was not propitiatory in that it actually removed God's wrath due to people's sin. Rather, it's a demonstration of God's displeasure with sin. That's something I wanted to discuss, was the propitiatory act, the nature of the atoning work. But I think that he knew enough to try and derail it in many directions, which, that's what happened in debates. He says,
so
go ahead. There's more I can tell you, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to add just this. It sounded often that he would bounce off your atonement theory, so he'd go from penal substitution, but then he'd just turn back around and say, oh, well,
yeah,
like you mentioned earlier, there's a contradiction in the debate where Jesus was atoning for our sins, and then he wasn't, and then he just kind of agreed that he did, and then you went off in that direction.
Right.
To me, I'm just like, well, that undermines your whole government theory of the atonement in the first place. So it seems like you've given up the thesis of the debate. So saying that, oh, well, Matt, you've derailed everything. We're just going in this random direction. Well, you followed him down that line. You actually conceded. So I don't really understand how that was helping his case.
Actually, he's the one who brought these things up. I remember correctly. Maybe I did a couple things, but he brought these things up to go in. Like he jumped to Acts 2:38. What? We weren't even on that. And I know that verse, and I knew he had sunk himself when he jumped to that. But here's another thing, is that it says in moral government theology says there's no correlation between sin and debt. But that's obviously not true, because he even said that Jesus paid the debt. I go, wait a minute, what's that debt? The sin debt. Well, wait a minute. He said, what was it? Indebted to. Well, then who are we indebted to? And he couldn't answer that. I don't remember him answering that. Who are we indebted to? So you incur a debt when you sin. Who are we indebted to? And in debt is a legal thing. Gosh. So much. It was bad.
So what's the next debate going to be about?
I don't know. Well, my next debate, I'm supposed to debate, my next one set up is on Calvinism, which we haven't got a specific thing, or I think we do, and open theism. Actually, I do think I have the topics, and that'll be in Denver, December 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th range.
What kind of open theist?
He's supposed to be a pastor who, let me get the stuff, supposed to be a Christian pastor.
Some of them are more philosophically trained, and some of them are more theological. Boyd versus someone else.
Right. And let me get so I can find the information. Debate on open theism, Calvinism in Denver. Let's see if I have the notes. Yeah, topic. Is Calvinism a proper representation of the God of Scripture? And does Calvinism present God as good and loving? And the other one is open theism a proper representation of the God of Scripture? Those are the topics. We'll narrow them down, but that's generally it. So, wow. Sheesh. Okay.
I gotta ask, does Jesse deny the concept of imputed righteousness? Because he seemed to mock that later on.
Yeah. That's a whole other topic we need to study or focus on him. But I quoted Philippians 3:9. We have a righteousness not our own. How do we get that righteousness? It's not our own. Whose is it? And I tried to. He steered away from that every single time. So, absolutely. I kept giving the whole picture. If you notice, I trying to do the whole picture so people listening will go, oh. But imputed righteousness. It's a righteousness not our own. Righteousness according to the law. How is that given to us? By faith. It's imputed to us. I think I said that. He didn't want to touch it, apparently.
Yeah, it would be tough. Like, it would be tough, short of putting a gun to his head and saying, answer the verse you actually brought up and not skip to about 3 or 4 different places. Then he'd probably just like sit there and just vibrate and just explode, you know? Just like, I've got to go somewhere else. I cannot just say, well, this verse actually means this. Here's why. He just said, well, hey, this other verse says this. He just went all over the place. Yeah. Oh, boy. But yeah, I saw that debate. I saw your debate with him though, and I saw the audience. The best. I got to say, this may not be the best part of the debate, but it's somewhat the more like entertaining, like the more I don't know what word you want to use, but the thing that grabbed my attention the most was how hostile these people were, and you can't even see them. You just hear their voices, and I'm like, these people, they think they are sinless, but they have no idea how they come across to people. When you're talking about just in sinning in the way you talk to other people, even if you don't intend to, you can accidentally make somebody angry at you and hate you or do something they should not do. And then you could figure out about it later and apologize for it and say, okay, I'm sorry. That was a complete and total accident. You totally misunderstood me. I apologize. Right. Don't take this the wrong way. I completely miscommunicated it. I didn't mean to do that. These people don't even know that's the kind of thing, the way they are right now. But they think that they're sinless. They really think that they're sinless, and they're being so condescending. They're being so rude, so snobbish. And then Jesse, he comes and talks to you and says, well, maybe you shouldn't have pride. Maybe you shouldn't be prideful. People have no idea how prideful they are. It's exploding from them, but they're like, I'm sinless. I'm sinless. Don't you see? I'm sinless.
Yep. But I remember at the debate in Montana that I was sitting there, and you guys didn't see the camera and stuff, or see what I saw. This woman in the very back. This is when it was kind of being exposed. It was being evident that they were sinless perfectionists, and I wasn't quite sure that was the case. And then I said, what, you don't sin anymore? And she goes, of course not. I don't know if that's exact wording, but she goes, of course not. No, I don't. And I remember just my jaw dropping, and nobody turned around to look at her like she was whacked.
Mm-hmm.
They all were like, and that's what caught me off guard. I did not expect that everybody was going, well, of course not. What's the problem with that? I'm like, what? You guys are that good? I was going to say to people, you don't sin? Spend 5 minutes with me. I'll fix that. You know, I don't want people to sin, but it's a nice joke. You know, I'm pretty irritating. I can get you to blow it, you know. It reminds me with Jesse. I said, wait a minute, you're bearing false witness against me. You just lost your salvation.
Liars shall not inherit the kingdom of heaven. So, yeah, that's you got to repent from that.
I think it's clear that Jesse's view of sin is anything he's not doing, and his view of not sinning is anything he's doing.
I wonder if he would admit that he ever commits the sin of lust. Does he ever do that? I mean, he's a married man, right? I'm pretty sure he is, isn't he? Okay, so
sure
he never ever lusts, because Gene Cook pegged Dan Corner on that back in 2006. He asked him, "Do you lust?" And Dan Corner got dodgy when it came to answering that question. I'm thinking maybe. I mean, does Jesse think that he just doesn't lust? Is that another sin that men can just not do? They just do it. Easy as pie. Maybe he does believe that, but
Jesse's delusional on that.
What's that?
Jesse is
delusional on that.
Oh, he's. I'm not saying he's saved or not saved, but he certainly seems to be preaching a works righteousness gospel.
He seems to be. Just it only seems. I was gonna say he absolutely is. 100%.
Snowball's chance, and Wait, is he annihilationist? Because that joke might not work.
I'm trying to be as gracious as possible here.
Do saved people preach false gospels?
No.
Well, when it comes to workspace, see, I'm not sure about that because I used to believe the same things Jesse did, but I don't think I wasn't saved. So I guess
the question is if you're ignorant of it or not. The only way you could qualify.
You could argue I was ignorant. I wasn't, nearly as developed in my beliefs as I am now. So, but I'd say, yeah, but I mean, it should raise a lot of red flags, certainly.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want this man preaching at my church.
The gospel. If he doesn't believe the gospel, if he's believing a different gospel, then how can he be a believer if he's believing some sort of false gospel? I mean, he believes what he's saying.
Oh yeah.
He got a house on the.
And you believe what you're preaching, then yeah, I don't think you can.
Yeah,
he got a house.
He got a house on the papal.
He needs to be converted. He needs Christ alone, Christ's righteousness alone.
That's why I said to him, so you believe in justification or salvation by faith alone through Christ alone? And he would not say yes.
Yeah.
It has to be the faith, and it has to lead to good works because he's got to throw the good works in there.
Mm-hmm. I think that's how he answered it. But then again, this was just a few minutes ago. I could be wrong, but yeah, if you can't say just yes to that, yeah, I'm pretty skeptical. I gotta say, and I don't think it's unfair for us to speculate about that. I mean, it's not like this guy isn't out there telling people that we preach a license to immorality. I think suggesting that he may not be saved is a slightly smaller form of an accusation to potentially level in his direction, because I mean, our accusation that's nothing. But telling us that we think that it's okay, well, not that it's okay, but that you can commit sin, just sin and still be saved, as if to imply that it is okay. That's just not okay.
He kept accusing me of things I don't believe. He kept doing that all the time. And I'm like, dude, that's not my position. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but he would quote these verses and then just insert words into these verses that weren't there. I mean, it was like the Mormons, where it says God doesn't even know of any other God. And they'll say, of this world. And it's like, dude, you're doing the same thing. It's like, stick with what it says. And then when I said they cannot please God or don't seek for God, he goes, or they can't seek for God. He goes, see, you changed it. Well, sorry, let's go back to exactly what it says. I mean, but it's not intentional, but he did it repeatedly.
Drunk.
Now, how many times do you guys think he misrepresented me?
Quite a few, and I only saw the last half hour, 40 minutes of it.
Well, he did have you on recorded handing out licenses to sin like the DMV. So I mean, yeah, a lot.
I never said that.
Wait, Jesse accused Matt of that during the debate?
Yeah. He said, I'm teaching a license to sin. Go, what?
He was dealing them out, dude. Didn't you see? It's hard to see because the cameras, but it happened.
Oh my goodness.
I mean, everybody knows I'm not teaching a license to sin. It's not okay to go out and do all that stuff. But if you go out and get drunk, it doesn't mean you're not a Christian. It means you've sinned. You need to stop.
Well,
no, you lost your salvation.
Sinless perfectionist Pelagian, it does sound like it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
From his perspective, of course it's going to be, anything other than his view is antinomianism.
I think that's how people like Jesse think. Everything's either ones and zeros. I mean, if either you agree with him or you believe that people should go on sinning.
Right.
Well, you can believe that, like, from a purely formal, logical point of view, that if you reject my position, then it necessarily entails that you believe that. But humans don't work that way. They can inconsistently hold to, a false belief and a true belief. So even if somebody rejects his position, it doesn't mean they think that it's okay to go out and commit sin. Even if he thinks our position entails that, that's not what we believe. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you in that it takes a bit more discipline when dealing with humans, Yeah, so their position, it's like saying a non-Calvinist believes in a works-based salvation. Well, they don't say that. They don't teach that necessarily. So it's better to examine what they teach, even because it doesn't matter that that is necessarily what is left if you reject Calvinism. It's
Right.
because that's not how humans work. It's a matter of what do they believe in spite of whether they are being fully and completely competently adhering to the negation of a particular thesis. Humans just don't work that way.
Right.
But yeah, I've got to listen to that whole debate. Now I was going to go to sleep. I was all tired and everything, but then I heard I just clicked on this debate, tuned into it live, and I'm wide awake, man. My blood got boiling, and I was like, it was super late, and I'm like, I don't care. I've got to join. I've got to talk about this.
I started the video at 7 o'clock, and we didn't get going until about 8 o'clock. So I got to figure out how to fix that in the debate. There's a way to edit or something. So if anybody knows how to do that, let me know. But there's a way to do it, I guess.
Oh, is it a YouTube?
Download it first.
Is it YouTube?
Yeah, it's YouTube. No, you can do it.
You got a built-in editor.
Yeah, you have a built-in editor. Where is it?
You can. I'd have to show you, but it's there, and you can edit stuff out.
Okay. Yeah, just the first hour, and then whatever. That's all, because it's just a waste of time. Up to it. Yeah, I saw it before too. I'll figure it out.
Let me see if I can share something real fast. It's not hard. Bring up one of my videos.
I almost think you should debate this guy again because as you can tell from my response and from the response of a couple of people, it does engage people's interest. Like they really like hearing people hash this out.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to things like drinking. And people who think that if you even get a little bit buzzed, that means you're drunk and that means you're sinning. You know, they're.
Gosh.
All right, Matt. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
So I went to my videos on my channel. Just where you get to the videos. Let's say this one. I'm just clicking on one.
Yes, I've had arguments with our videos.
Not that one. Not that. I hit edit. Hit edit. I didn't mean to play it. Hit edit. And it's under enhancement. You see at the top.
Wait a second. Wait. Okay, so hit edit. Yeah.
And then hit enhancement.
Enhancements.
All right. And then what you're going to do, you see those trim here at the bottom right by the bottom right of the video. Says
yeah.
Trim. So all you do is click that, and that enables you to where you can. This enables you to drag this thing down here to crop out what you want.
I see.
Once you're done, you hit done and save, and it'll save this part that's you can see, and it crops out whatever's on the crosshatch or the hash.
Okay, so
you'd hit done, and then I would hit save, and that it takes time to process it. So you just got to find the right spot, and then you hit done and save, and it'll crop it out.
All right, so it's about 50 minutes. Yeah, I'm looking at it and can see. So I'll go back to like 49 minutes or so. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, it's not too hard, but once you do that, it's going to be offline for a couple hours.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
All right.
Yeah, I'm listening to myself. I hate listening to myself.
Oh, everyone does. Except narcissists and people who are sinless perfectionists, I think.
Well, no, expose yourself to it long enough and you'll actually get used to it.
No, I hate my voice.
My wife doesn't like listening to me either.
My kids don't either, apparently.
All 30 of them.
I actually think it's funny that he said he was writing another book. Doesn't he have to give away the book he's already written? I thought, isn't he having like difficulty getting people to buy the book he already wrote? Why write and print a new book if people won't buy it?
Well, that doesn't necessarily say that his previous book doesn't necessarily dictate whether or not his next book will be good or not. So I don't think that would necessarily follow.
Well, he'll be able to now say, when it comes to this issue over and over again, read my book, which is always pretty fun to say.
Read my book. Who else have I heard? Oh, George Bryson, a guy who also has to give away all of his books for free because people wouldn't buy them. Well, I mean, literally, last time I checked years ago, George Bryson had like PDFs of all of his books available for free on a website of his, and I'm assuming he did it because he couldn't get people to pay for them.
Yeah, I read his book, Calvinism, Weight and Pound Loading. What a load of crap.
I think Jesse is a smart guy, and I do respect his street preaching stuff that he does. But I mean, he's just a guy who's got a false gospel. So, But his book, I mean, I don't know. I haven't read anything much he's written. He's pretty well spoken sometimes.
Yeah, in fact, you can go to Karma, just type in Jesse Morrell, and I've got a lot of quotes and stuff from his work, and there's some pretty heretical stuff in there. So his next book's gonna be.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Just type in this. I think it's karm.org/Jesse Morrell.
No, I was saying, does it have anything on the government atonement theory?
In there? Oh yeah. If you go there to that link, in fact, guys, do that right now. I'll show you something. Let's see. And you can get to the place where it says a list. Wait. Interesting quotes from Jesse Morrell. And I put his quotes in brown. And you guys could just read through and pick stuff. And like page 435, forgiveness of sin only comes after we forsake our sins. What? That's Pelagianism. The will itself is a cause. Free will gives man the power of self-causation in the realm of morality. He's a complete libertarian. You guys can check some of those quotes out. They're pretty interesting.
This is Jesse's first book, right?
Yeah, he gave me the book, PDF. I was able to just search through things. This is like 400 pages, 500 pages. I'm not going to read the whole thing.
What's the title of his book?
It's at the top there. It's The Natural Ability of Man. He gave it to me, and I can't find it. I got it digital someplace.
Anyway.
A lot of people were. I woke up. As soon as I woke up, it was up. This debate was going on. I didn't know anything about it, so I clicked it, and I'm just like, oh, it got pretty interesting.
Me too. Me too.
What was that you guys just said?
I woke up and then just noticed over notifications, just like, well, Jesse Morrell debate. I'm just like, Jesse Morrell. But then there's like atonement theory. That's something people don't really talk about. Usually they're just blindly going after topics I already talked. So I'll click it. And it turned out, well, soon as the format of 3 minutes, I'll answer a question, and then you get 1 minute for response, which he forgot. So there's no response at all. After you broke down that, it just got into like a very interesting, long, drawn out. The best part of the debate is the back and forth, cross examination.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things, Matt, he really had a problem with, with the fact that Jesus died on the cross for our sins, and that the sin was paid for, and then so if it's already paid for, then how come I mean,
you ask forgiveness.
Yeah, exactly. And so
I answered that like 10 times.
Right. And if we're looking at both the active and passive obedience of Christ as what justifies us, then we're really, we're really, to the point where, I mean, I guess maybe you could have talked to him more about justification itself being something that God declares at that time after that, rather than, I don't know another way to maybe explain it to the guy that he would get it. But you know,
yeah, he thought it was obvious. He thought he had something that. Sorry, I'm trying to find out the spot for me to hit the edit on the video, which I have to ask you about. How do you do the rest of it? But yeah, he thought he had me. I'm like, dude, you don't have me. Let me explain it. Let me, quote the scriptures over and over again. Well, why need forgiveness? If it's already been forgiven, then why do you need to be forgiven? Didn't say it was forgiven. It was canceled. A sin debt manifestation when you believe. Geez.
Yeah, well, the verdict of righteous before God, the verdict of justified comes after faith. The actual application of the cross and what Christ accomplished in his life lived and his death on the cross becomes applied to us, and we're declared right. And so,
and that's something often ignored. And that's what everybody in the YouTube chat jumped on that, right? They just instantly, when he brought up it's pretty sad, because all the fake semi-Pelagians jumped on his bandwagon for that moment, of course, but they also, they noticed when he went off the rails a bit, work salvation, but they jumped on the same criticism. What they don't understand is how all the confessions talk about how it's going to be applied in the fullness of time.
Right.
Read. And that's what they ignore. They think we don't think time is real, and Jesus could atone for somebody, but they don't exist yet in the sort of sense, right? They come later in the timeline.
Brought that up too. It's like, oh, come on, what do you expect?
So faith and repentances are means by is what the reformers termed instrumental.
Right.
So by that it's applied. Through faith.
And I'll look at it while you.
All right, now I got a question. I found the place where I need to hit on the video to cut that part out. 53 minutes and 12 seconds was what I'm going to do it at. So now what do I do? Hit split?
Can you share your screen? That'll probably make it easier.
Yeah. Okay, let's see. Then I got to get going, guys, because I've been at this for 4.5 hours. My wife is, so my head's starting to go.
Are you saying she's more important to you than us?
Yeah, a little bit there. All right, so where am I? Hold on, get this.
I'm out too. Thanks, Matt. I'll be watching your video channel in the future. So.
All right, man. Good. Praise God.
All right. Thanks. Good night.
All right.
All right.
Okay, you see it?
I do see it. So you got, all right, so you moved. Wow, that looks, why is it not highlighted? So you mark that time down and go back to videos and come back in it. Because it just doesn't look right. So mark that time down.
So come out of it.
Yeah, come out of it.
Okay, ouch. Okay.
All right, and hit trim
like
again.
This.
Well, no, hit trim. Hold on, let it come up all the way.
Yeah. Oh, I see loading here too.
It's loading. There you go. So that left blue bar on the bottom left.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there. Drag it to the 53. Whatever.
5312.
All right.
53 or 52? Dang it.
I saw 53. So. You can always go back. Yeah, I mean, you can leave it there and hit done. And then you can do, if you want to keep the original, and you can hit save as new video, or if you just want to let it edit that one, you hit save.
I'll just hit save. Done.
All right. And so what's going to do, it's going to come back and it'll say it's processing, and it's going to take a while. See, edit in progress. So that's going to happen probably. Let it go overnight because it takes a couple hours.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
All right. And that's
no
all
problem.
you
I want to get this going. Hey guys, look, I'm going to get going because I am getting fried a little bit. Been working hard.
Hey Matt, real quick before you leave, you pointed to us to a couple of quotes in the book. I've got his book in Kindle format right here. Can you remind me what those quotes were that you just read so I can search for them?
Go to just go to the CARM site. I have a lot of them extracted.
Okay, there's a couple you read off. You said we should check out. I was.
What were those? I can't remember.
That's okay. I'll watch the YouTube video later.
Hit the
But,
stop broadcast at the bottom, by the way.
He
What's
has
that?
this article right here.
Stop broadcast at the bottom. If you're still live.
What do you mean stop broadcast at the bottom?
Are
Right
you-
now?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah, talking to you, we're live.
I don't think you want this part live, do you?
Oh, we're just blabbing. I mean,
Yeah.
right now, I'm gonna hit stop broadcast, and then it's gone.
No,
Drinking
yeah,
beers,
the
drinking
hangout will
beers,
still go.
except that's it.
The hangout will keep going.